Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're embarking on a truly epic cinematic journey deep into the sands of ancient Arabia. Today, we're tracking down one of the most legendary, powerful, and honestly, mysterious female rulers of the ancient world. We're talking about a woman whose legacy bridges entire continents, sparks massive archaeological hunts, and sits at the very heart of three major world religions. We are, of course, talking about the Queen of Sheba.
More than 2,000 years ago, in the heart of ancient Arabia, a powerful queen ruled a wealthy kingdom known for gold, spices, and wisdom. I want you to just picture that for a second. Picture those sprawling ancient desert landscapes, the heavily laden trade caravans cutting through the towering dunes, monumental palaces literally rising out of the heat haze. You see, this wasn't just some myth. This was a vibrant, deeply interconnected ancient world.
So, to understand her world, let's look at Section 1, the heart of ancient Arabia.
To truly understand this legendary queen, we first have to understand the staggering wealth of her region, and it all comes down to an economic powerhouse, resin, specifically the frankincense tree, Boswellia sacra. This tree is kind of a botanical anomaly. It thrives only in these incredibly harsh, demanding conditions, literally clinging to the limestone cliffs in places like modern-day Oman and Yemen. When you slash its bark, it bleeds this milky sap that hardens into translucent little tears. And when burned, that resin creates this thick, vertical column of heavily aromatic smoke. To the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, Romans, and Israelites, this wasn't just perfume, right? That smoke rising straight up into the air was seen as a literal, divine conduit to the gods. It was the ancient world's divine hotline, and it anchored the entire global economy and religious practices of antiquity.
But here's the catch. To get that sacred incense from the remote cliffs of southern Arabia all the way to the grand temples of the Mediterranean, you had to move it along the incense road. And that was a grueling, punishing 2,400-kilometer desert route stretching all the way from Dhofar to Gaza. Every single day of that months-long journey, across every tribal boundary and mountain pass, a toll was extracted.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this massive trade route forged entire empires. The Sabaean kingdom essentially controlled the southern terminus of this route, so they didn't just passively harvest the resin. They operated a ruthless logistics monopoly. They tolled the trade, and they used that staggering influx of capital to build incredibly advanced hydraulic civilizations right in the middle of the desert. We're talking monumental temples and the Great Dam of Marib, which sustained a booming population and created a lush oasis that completely defied the harsh landscape. This is the incredible, almost unimaginable wealth that funded the world of our queen.
Which brings us to Section 2, the wealth of Sheba. This immense wealth actually brings us to a massive geographical mystery. Where exactly was the Kingdom of Sheba? Well, historians and scholars have fiercely debated two primary theories for centuries. On one side, you've got the Yemen theory. This points to the Sabaean kingdom in southern Arabia with its capital at Marib, a kingdom that was globally renowned for its frankincense and spices. On the other side, we have the Ethiopia theory. This one is deeply rooted in the Horn of Africa and preserved in the sacred text known as the Kebra Nagast. This tradition calls her queen Makata and points to a region famous in antiquity for its absolutely vast gold deposits.
And actually, that detail about gold, that is a major clue. In the biblical account found in 1 Kings, the queen travels to meet King Solomon, and she brings him, along with all those spices, a gift of 120 talents of gold. To put that into perspective, that is roughly 4,000 kilograms. That's literally tons of gold. Now, Yemen, historically speaking, never possessed significant gold deposits. The Horn of Africa, however, was one of the ancient world's richest gold-producing regions, so this strongly points to a deep African geographic connection.
So the crucial point is that we might not actually have to choose between these two theories at all. In antiquity, you have to remember, the Red Sea wasn't a wall, it was a highway. Ancient Ethiopia and Yemen were so deeply interconnected through trade, genetics, and language that it is entirely plausible they formed a united transcontinental kingdom across the water. Sheba was highly likely a trans-Red Sea realm spanning parts of both Arabia and Africa, and that perfectly explains a queen who possessed both the aromatic spices of Yemen and the gleaming gold of Ethiopia.
Let's move on to Section 3, the wise Queen Bilqis.
Having established the incredible wealth and scale of her kingdom, let's turn our focus to the legendary monarch herself.
It's fascinating because we see her legacy refracted through different cultural lenses. In the Hebrew Bible, she's Malkat Sheba, a wealthy, powerful seeker of truth who travels to test Solomon's wisdom. In Islamic tradition, she is known as Bilqis, a brilliant, sun-worshipping diplomat who leads a mighty nation. And in Ethiopian Christianity, she is Makada, the foundational mother of the entire Solomonic dynasty. I love this because each tradition preserves a unique, powerful facet of her identity. She's never just a secondary character defined by a man, she is an autonomous, entirely self-assured ruler in her own right.
The Quranic account in Surah An-Nam gives us this wonderfully vivid illustration of the sheer grandeur of her court. It tells the story of King Solomon, who has been given the divine ability to speak to animals. He notices that his scout, a hoopoe bird, is missing. When the bird finally returns, it reports discovering a previously unknown, wildly prosperous land. It says, "I found there a woman ruling them, and she has been given of all things, and she has a great throne."
And that sets us up perfectly for Section 4, the encounter with Solomon. This is where we get the most famous diplomatic meeting of the ancient world. And honestly, the narrative in the Quran reads like a cinematic thriller. So Solomon sends a letter demanding that Bilqis submit to the one true God. Bilqis, showing some incredible political savviness, decides to test his true intentions first by sending him a wildly lavish gift. But when Solomon, who is totally unimpressed by worldly wealth, rejects it, he flexes his power. He commands his court to bring her massive throne to Jerusalem before she even arrives, and a scholar with knowledge of Scripture obliges, literally teleporting her magnificent throne in the blink of an eye.
When Queen Bilqis finally does arrive in Jerusalem, she is subjected to one final marvel. She's asked to enter this grand palatial hall. The floor is made of perfectly smooth, clear glass, but she mistakes it for a shimmering pool of water and lifts her skirts so they won't get wet. When Solomon reveals it's just glass, the queen realizes the profound wisdom and the undeniable divine backing of Solomon. Recognizing her past misconceptions, she steps forward and declares, "My lord, indeed I have wronged myself, and I submit with Solomon to God, Lord of the worlds." It is a massive, climactic moment of spiritual awakening and the meeting of two incredible minds.
Let's move to Section 5, Unearthing the Truth, and see how this builds into modern times. So moving from ancient religious texts to modern archaeological detective work, the hunt for the historical Sheba has literally been a real-world Indiana Jones adventure. We know the Sabaean kingdom emerged around the 10th century BCE. Fast forward, way ahead, to 1951, an American archaeologist named Wendell Phillips launches this massive expedition at the Queen Bilqis temple in Marib, Yemen. But sudden, severe tribal tensions force him to evacuate overnight. He has to abandon all his equipment in the sand, and he never made it back. But then, almost half a century later in 1998, his sister Marilyn Phillips Hodgson triumphantly returned to finish the job. Her team excavated a staggering 16 feet deep into the unforgiving desert sands just to uncover the ancient precinct.
And what they found down there was just breathtaking. They unearthed monumental stone pillars, these massive sweeping stairways, intricate bronze and alabaster sculptures, and a wealth of Sabaean inscriptions. The archaeology provided undeniable hard proof of a massively wealthy, highly advanced civilization that was built entirely on the incense trade. But here is the twist. Despite uncovering the sheer epic scale of the world she would have ruled, archaeologists have yet to find a single inscription directly naming the Queen of Sheba herself.
Which leads us to our final section, an everlasting legacy.
Whether she was a single historical figure, maybe a composite of several powerful Arabian queens, or even a symbol of the transcontinental spice trade itself, her legacy acts as this incredible, enduring cultural bridge. In Ethiopia, she is still the revered mother of the royal dynasty. Her legendary diplomatic mission was the actual catalyst for ancient Jewish diaspora communities in both Yemen and Ethiopia that survive to this very day. And she's been immortalized everywhere from Renaissance art to modern television. Understanding her story reminds us that history isn't just stuck in the past, you know? Her independent spirit, her wealth, and her relentless quest for wisdom planted seeds of culture and faith that we still feel today.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. Though centuries have passed, the Queen of Sheba continues to inspire generations as a powerful symbol of wisdom, female power, and the epic meeting of great civilizations. But her story leaves us with an incredible, lingering mystery. As modern technology allows us to look deeper and deeper beneath the dunes, will the sands of Marib ever finally reveal her true name? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and keep seeking out the fascinating stories hidden in our history.